Hey friends, this is Marilyn from tarotclarity.com, and I've been kind of obsessing on this Danelo Cavalcante matter. I know in the past that I've said that I don't prefer to do public readings for these kinds of things if I don't have a stake in it, I might do them privately to see what I can see or what insights I might get, and maybe put it out there in a chat forum to help. I don't think too many people take tarot readers too seriously. But for this particular case, I grew up in that area, and I have extended family and friends who were in the Longwood Gardens area. I've been to Longwood Gardens many, many times, including in recent years. About 2 years ago, I went there. And now he's taken off, and now he's heading in the direction where I still have family, And so I'm really concerned. I'm really kind of worried. So I kind of feel like I do have a stake in this. Now, I did mention in many of the conversations that in the comments of people who responded to my last video, which was on the Cavalcante case, that I would reverse engineer the reading to see what I might have missed after this was all over with. Now, the case isn't over. It's still happening, but I still want to I want to take a second look and see what I might have missed. Now, in my description of my last video, I did indicate that, there were things that maybe I would have commented on had I spent more time on the video. One of them having been the female pope. I didn't look at that top row. Let me flip the camera. I didn't look at that top row as being any more individualized, the cards, than being of highest importance and extreme importance, right? It started with the tower. Now, as we all know, it started with escaping from the roof of a building, of the prison, right? So this is how it all started. If you recall, the final card was also a tower card. Now, interestingly, I had to use another card from another deck, but interestingly, it's just a coincidence. It has nothing to do with the deck that I used, but the final tower of the deck I ended up using is being struck from a different direction. Now, this is the overall, my intent for the reading was that this was the general overall card of the whole circumstance, which hasn't happened yet. Now, it could be that, there's some people have commented, and I think it's all legit, that this is an indicator that, the institutions have to be reevaluated, things have to be looked at, because he's gotten away right under the noses of, law enforcement. But it still hasn't happened yet. Right? It still hasn't happened. It's not finished yet. So is it possible that it will happen, that this resolution will take place in a building, another building? Is that a possibility? We're looking, we see it like, maybe it's just the prison. And it could be, absolutely a need to redo our institutions, but it could also mean that it will happen in some type of building. So I don't know. This card is not done yet. And yes, I will come back probably to this reading a few times, especially after it's all gone down, after it's all happened. I will come back because it's a learning experience for me. I mean, I've been doing this for, 47 or 48 years, but I still learn. And I want to learn better. Now, maybe at this stage, it's time to look at these individual cards up here rather than seeing them in a general way as of the highest importance. So I touched on this, that it began with the prison escaping from a roof, right? Then we have a female card, a person who some could see as a mother figure. I think other people see the Empress as a mother figure. But if she is Saint Joan or whatever, if you go back to the origin story, she, had a child, possibly. But she could just be someone who keeps a low profile but is instructional or helpful, right? He does have a sister. I don't know if she lives in the area where he now is. I think he's last seen in Phoenixville. He could be long gone from there. But he could have gotten assistance from a female figure who prepared him with information, a person who kept a low profile, right? Temperance, I'm still not entirely clear about temperance. Certainly, if his sister had to get involved, there's some lack of clarity as to whether she helped authorities, because if she helped authorities in getting him at the first place, right, then he's not going to feel warm and fuzzy about her. But at the same time, maybe he would go back to his sister for help. I don't know. So maybe the sisters had to compromise herself. That's a possibility. A female had to compromise herself. I don't know. Or it could be that Witter in some way Witter is in some way playing a part in this. And then the wheel could be a few things at this stage. Remember, we're still in the middle of it. He hasn't been found. It could be things will continue as they've been. It could be that he or law enforcement will get a break and something will happen due to a break. Certainly, he's been getting a lot of breaks. He got at least an hour when it started to get away from the prison in the first place. So he got that break. It was an hour before anybody knew. And it was hours, last night, they were still looking at Longwood Gardens till like midnight. I was watching the feed. I watched JLR Investigates, among other feeds. I follow a few feeds. But while they were still at Longwood Gardens, he was hours gone in the direction of Phoenixville. So he definitely got some breaks. He definitely got some lucky breaks. So I think this so far is the lucky break that he's getting, not law enforcement at this stage. However, we may get a lucky break too at some stage. So lucky breaks seems to be the way. It also could be, it's just, it may end up being as we expect it to play out. It'll just go on the way it's been going on. So the wheel could be a couple of things. It remains to be seen, which is why we want to say multiple possibilities for a card, right? We could say that it will continue in the way that it's been going, or in the way we expect it to go, or that there will be lucky breaks, either for him or law enforcement or both. Now, I think this row pretty much was clear. He's a person of small stature, a violent person, if we want to see the swords as violent. And I did see it that way because the next two cards are violent cards, or could be seen as violent cards. Not necessarily on their own, but together. And then with the end cap of the devil, it sort of sealed it for me that we're talking about a very violent individual, a bad individual, a person. I don't like to judge people, but this person seems to be capable of the most heinous things. Now let's take a look at the 7 and the 8. They aren't the highest order of swords. 9 and 10 would be the highest order. So there's still room for maximum violence, right? 7 is, a number of transcendence. I think maybe, I'm not sure if it was up or down when I originally pulled it. And then 8th, the 8 is higher. 8s could suggest, standstills. Sometimes 8 is so stable it can suggest ennui or boredom, which is kind of interesting because they were staked out forever, in the wrong place. So that's interesting in light of what has happened so far, but it still isn't what has already happened. So far as we know, now this could change, and I hope not, no one else has been killed or no one else has been hurt. So that's a good thing, and it's hopeful that, because these aren't like 9 and 10, there is still room for it to have been maybe worse. Now, as far as timing goes, the only cards that suggest timing to me are the swords, which in my, my understanding of the cards means swift, quick, right? And yet it's been 10 days, or I think today is 11 days. So it hasn't been that swift. Now, maybe law enforcement sees 11 days for a manhunt as being short, or, I think manhunts can go on for a month, if they're slippery individuals. I mean, there is, word that he probably has survival skills. He belonged to a gang. He's a resourceful individual. He's tiny. He's very small. He can probably fit in spots that maybe some of us wouldn't even think to look in. In fact, we see, if we want to look at it like that, contained in a container, contained into something. So we, that's a possibility that this could have represented that, where we could see it like that. Right? Taking the opportunity to hide in something which I didn't see or think or consider before. That's a possibility. There are no other cards that suggest time to me. So I guess time is a relative feature, and possibly maybe it will be a relatively quick circumstance, although not a quick resolution, though certainly not as quick as we would hope. And then, I read this as being the authority looking, well, perhaps the authorities, this is another card of stability. Perhaps the authorities were counting too much on what they thought was a likely scenario, right? They were sure, they were positive that he was still in Longwood Gardens when he was 8 hours already on the road. Now, he didn't get very far in 8 hours. Well, actually, we don't know where he is now. He could be long gone from Phoenixville. He could be going into the Poconos, which is a mountainous area, which is another survivalist dream come true. He could ditch that van that he supposedly took, and could be another cat and mouse game in the mountains. I took this to be my wish fulfillment. I'm hopefully, in agreement with the majority of people who want him to be caught. And it seems that ultimately it will happen, right? It will happen. There will be an end to it. And because the wish fulfillment card and this card of finality occur together, that it will be his finality and not an individual person's. And then, as I mentioned, the quintessential of the entire spread, which is, the addition of these cards minus 22, in order to give us a card from 0 to 21, it kind of ends the way it began, perhaps in a building. Maybe that's what that means. So, I don't think there's anything wrong in reverse engineering readings. In fact, I kind of do it frequently because, it helps me see things I might have missed, And sometimes when we do readings, let me flip the camera. Sometimes when we do readings and we mention a few possibilities, especially if somebody wants a general read, right? And we mention a few things, they'll be like, oh, it's so general. But because we can't know every single solitary circumstance of a situation, right? We don't know every detail. you put it out there, because it could mean this, it could mean that, it could mean this. In the context of the question, it could maybe only mean this, right? But anyway, I just thought I would do this, and I still will do another reverse engineer, or I will at least comment on these cards once it's all said and done and he is hopefully captured. Again, I do want to indicate that the deck for the core 12 cards was the Hess, published by Giordano Berti, and it was the first reading I've ever done for this deck. And boy, what a reading, right? I mean, uncanny, the cards that were pulled for this. Really remarkable, as far as I'm concerned. And then for the final Tower card, because remember, the Tower was in play already, I pulled a card from Il Meneghello's Besançon deck. And anyway, for those of you who are kind of enthralled as I am, I mean, I'm like going to sign off here, and I'm going to go back to the True Crime feeds to see what's up, because as I said, I don't typically do public readings for crime events, but because my heart, there are people who I really love who have been affected by this, and if he's on a trajectory, there's a possibility that even more of my family, could be affected by this. So it's like very upsetting and unsettling to me. And anyway, until next time, friends, peace and stay well. Stay safe, especially if you're anywhere near this stuff. Please, lock up everything. And I think it's probably a good reminder in general to always be mindful, because this world has gotten to be a kind of cuckoo place, and just always be mindful of your surroundings and lock up. Peace and stay well.